I am here.
I'll check again.
Not just yet.
Recording in progress.
Okay, now we can get started. So we'll start with the calling of the roll.
Councilmember Cole?
Present.
Councilmember Jones?
Here.
Mayor Gordo?
Here.
Councilmember Lyon is excused.
Okay, so welcome everyone to the August 5th, 2026 meeting of the Housing, Homelessness and Planning Committee. We'll jump right into the agenda with public comment, not on matters not on the agenda. And it was.
Tanisha Offray, we will begin.
Let's see here. Hello, good afternoon.
So we're going to give everyone 2 minutes, given the need to get to the agenda.
No problem. Good afternoon, Mayor and council members. I am standing before you today. I'm Tanisha with Shepherd's Door Domestic Violence Resource Center here in Pasadena. And I'm here to advocate for the constituents that I feel voices are not uplifted in these conversations. Our last census report identified that 40% of the population unhoused currently in Pasadena are victims of domestic violence and sexual assault. Yet we don't really have anything meaningful to address this population of people currently. I want to share a really brief story to give some context to why I feel like this is important. Currently, we have been working with a survivor who is a survivor of sexual assault. Unfortunately, a little bit more background context. She grew up in foster care system right here in Pasadena, aged out at the age of 18, found herself living on the street, became a human trafficking victim, ended up having a child by one of her traffickers, slept on porches with her child, slept in the street with her child. She finally landed in Altadena where she decided she had an opportunity to live, to work, to help out someone with babysitting, and Eaton Fire happened. She found herself in the convention center, and unfortunately, in that convention center, it was an emergency center, and everybody was there. She was sexually assaulted by someone who should not have been in that center, and that's when her life really fell apart. After that, she experienced a lot of mental health issues. Her child was taken away as a result of that, and still she was not met with any compassion or meaningful care. She has gone to several agencies here in our city, but none of these agencies are equipped to deal with her unique needs. At Shepherd's Door, we have been able to help her, house her, but unfortunately, we don't get the funding that a lot of our other homeless service providers receive. Currently, she is back unhoused. We had her working with the program here in our city. There was a breakdown in communication with the program that have left her now sleeping on the streets yet again. To date, at this particular time, there has been no meaningful action that have been offered to this particular client. I think that we can do better as a city with implementing some structures, some programs that can actually meet the needs of this vulnerable population and not continue to leave them out of the conversation. I would like to see that this body, our council, actually enact vouchers if they're available, motel vouchers if they're available, anything that can help to leading to stability for these families. Currently, this student is a PCC student. She is on the honors program. She just finished her peer-to-peer medical specialist certificate because she wants to work with foster youth. Also, like herself, she is trying to be a productive member, but leaving her out on the street is leaving her vulnerable yet again. And again, I've reached out to numerous service providers, and nothing meaningful has been offered to date to this time. So I want to bring to light these issues just to give context on what is out here when we talk about the 40%. And I hope that
15
the
seconds.
body can consider these stories and actually help to come up with some meaningful solutions so that we can address them. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jones?
Mayor, I know it's public comment. It's not a practice to respond to, or at least my practice, to respond to public commenters. But I was wondering if the assistant city manager could connect Tanisha and her organization with, or Jim Wong into housing department.
Yes, and Jim may have some further information, but I believe there's a meeting that's being set up.
That's right. We're aware of this case. It's very unfortunate, but housing staff has been and will continue to provide coordination and communication between the service providers and the client.
Thank you, Jim. And I think it would be prudent to bring in PCC if this is a student of PCC as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Next speaker.
Next speaker.
We'll have Jacob Monson, followed by Michael J. Kiwa, then Chen Chen.
If you hear your name, please step forward and form a line in the center aisle so we can.
Then Patricia Dyer, and then Larry. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. Ganio?
Welcome.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jacob Munson, and I'm a newly graduated senior from Pasadena High School. And by mid-September, I'll be off studying civil engineering at Stanford University. I'm also a transit nerd. Shout out to Route 10. I like taking public transportation everywhere, including to here. So I will preface this by saying I like the idea of ensuring that people who want to live here can live here. So it pains me to have to be devil's advocate to the affordable housing projects along Colorado, specifically in East Pasadena, along Allen, Greenwood, San Marino, and Craig. There are several issues I see with this, but there's one that sticks out to me a lot: parking. So, I should ask, out of all you council members here, how many of you own a car? So, according to the US Census Bureau, the average person in Pasadena owns 2 cars. Let's just make this one, just give it some leeway. So, out of the 214 units at 2155 East Colorado Boulevard, based on my extremely amazing logic, there should be 214 parking spaces. Guess how many there are? 109, but same thing, basically. Yeah, that's a bit less than 214, don't you think? Unless you're in modulo 200. So the argument might be, hey, there's transit nearby, right? There's lots of lines. Well, let's take a nice Sunday at 5 p.m. You have the 187. It's hourly. Great, or it's half hourly, sorry. Great. What else do you have? Okay, you have the 267. Well, that's either a 0.27 or a 0.42 mile walk away. Okay, it's not that bad. It's hourly on weekends. You have the 487, which is a 0.64 mile walk, and it's every 45
15
minutes.
seconds.
You have the Blue Line, which is 0.9 miles away, The 180 is also 0.9 miles away. The 10 stopped running, 31 stopped running, the 40 stopped running, the 60 doesn't run on weekends. Do you think that's transit accessible? Do you think there's gonna be enough parking over there? Where's it gonna go? On the streets, everywhere. It's gonna block everything.
Time's up. Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Michael J. Kiwa? Last name with the Q? Is that Quinn? Yes.
And if you can read the other names, a couple of other names.
Then it's followed by Xinyuan Chen, Patricia Dyer, Larry Ganoa, Michael Bravo, Humaria, and Thomas Tai.
Please form a line in the center aisle so we can expedite the process. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm here to speak again. The gentleman before me addressed the proposed 6 massive affordable housing projects on East Colorado Boulevard. We haven't heard anything about this from our city councilman. And why have we been kept in the dark? This flyer got handed out. What's going on? I'd like to know. How far along is this process? You gonna break ground next week? You're gonna get eminent domain and get the money for that? I'd like some explanation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
We're also in the dark because the flyer you are reacting to does not give an address, a phone number, or anyone responsible for putting them out.
Let's.
Is it true? You are working on affordable housing units on the main drag?
I'm admonished by the mayor not to comment, so I'd be happy to answer that question offline.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, next speaker.
Xianyuan Chen?
Okay, next speaker.
Patricia Dyer? Okay. Larry?
Welcome, sir.
Thank you. My name is Larry Gainer. I'm a just recently moved here. But I understand that the nickname for Pasadena is Crown City. And if you think of who wears crowns, it's kings and queens. And kings and queens are never looking for affordable housing. They have palaces. So I don't think we need anything like that here. I checked the city salary schedule because I guess some city employees might want to live nearby and to see what kind of things. And I can kind of understand the flyers' concern about crime, security rangers, detention monitors. All fall into the category of people who might be suitable for this affordable housing. And having spent 6 years in high school under the eyes of detention monitors, I don't want to see any more of them. Rosarians, apparently these are people who keep track and cultivate roses, and the idea of rose-hugging thugs casing your house while they're supposedly, monitoring the vegetation is concerning. Journalists also don't make a whole lot of money, and they're writing and filming, living nearby and writing and filming citizens. If God wanted people's activities kept track of like that, he wouldn't have given us flock cameras. I know high-rise buildings also have an association with crime. I know there's a place in New York City called Trump Tower that has a kind of dubious reputation. But another concern is that downward pressure on rents that might result. If you have more affordable housing, that means
15
other
seconds.
places. Thank you. And that could disturbingly lead to more non-wealthy people moving to the city. So I hope you'll keep these considerations in mind. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you're here for the flyer, please place matters not on the agenda. Or if you're here for something else, you could place item number 1, 2, 3, 4 through 5. But it's important for you to place an item so I know where to place you in the meeting. Next is Michael Bravo, followed by Humeria.
Mr. Bravo, welcome.
Hello, my name is Michael Bravo. I live on 42 Berkeley. I believe that on that flyer there will be a housing unit, affordable housing unit. Please, I come here as a citizen of Pasadena who have grown up here. It's dire if those housing units do go up, especially in that area. Not only crime, but it's, again, parking. I'm here because I had to pay a citation. There you go. I got hit with the parking citation. I don't have parking in my apartment complex, so I park outside. And with those housing projects or affordable housing projects there, it's just gonna double, triple, and quadruple within like the next 10 years. So the streets will be flooded in vehicles. How the young gentleman, I believe his name was Daniel, was just here, made a great point. The transit, your situation here in Pasadena would be very off. And I'm just here to give my 2 cents to the council. And that's it. You raised my voice.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hi. I will just start off by saying I haven't driven a car in months, and I got here on public transit.
Ma'am, if you can just identify yourself for the record.
Okay, Homera. The core problem is a severe shortage of homes that people can actually afford. We need more housing, not more studies about things like buffer zones for schools. When I think about schools, I don't think about 500-foot buffers. I instead hope that our schools are teaching about why we have an affordable housing emergency that has persisted for years, if not decades. Things like redlining, segregation, classism, racism, and intentional policy choices by local government leaders of the past. The creation of this committee was a good first step to show that the city is taking affordable housing shortage seriously. I implore you to stay the course, even as you face opposition from people who already have a safe and secure place to call home. In many cases, it will be from people who own very expensive homes. I expect some very vocal opposition. I've been giving comment at city meetings wherever I've lived for years. The nastiest, rudest audience I ever encountered was at a design commission hearing for the 100% affordable housing development at 600 North Rosemead, right here in Pasadena. Those of us speaking in support of it were interrupted, booed, and even hissed at as we walked back to our seats. We look to this committee and the city to push forward with the serious work to make sure that all of our residents have somewhere that they can afford to live, whether it's currently unhoused, teachers, retail workers, or recent college graduates. Government intervention played a major role in creating the shortage of affordable housing and generally high prices. Government intervention and perseverance is necessary to get us out.
15
Please
seconds.
show the committee that you're going to continue prioritizing affordable housing and not cave to opposition. Thank you.
Thomas Tai.
Thomas Nye for the record. Good evening, everyone. Good to see some familiar faces here. So I also saw that flyer, and I've gone to many businesses in East Colorado. I've run by there. I live here in Pasadena, like met everyone here pretty much. I think everyone's noticed that there are more homeless than ever before on our streets. I would hope people have noticed that. To have fewer homeless, we need more homes. And I know that many of these sites are vacant sites or they're derelict retail areas. When you have empty sites or derelict buildings for a long time, you actually invite more crime, more disorder, more illegal dumping, all things that we do not enjoy in our city. So as we're thinking about these affordable housing projects, please stay the course. We cannot have fewer homeless without building more homes. And when people are complaining about East Colorado retail dying or our PUSD enrollment falling, I don't see how those problems are going to be fixed without more foot traffic, without more students attending PUSD. And also, we keep complaining about the homeless. How do we fix homelessness without more homes? So, you know, we all hope for some perfect solution about parking. We all hope for some perfect solution about housing and design or whatever things look like. But in the meantime, there's hundreds of people sleeping on our streets. Several of them may die from sleeping on the streets in the near future. More may join them as the rent keeps going up. The rent has not gone down. If it's gone down, I would love to know where. So please stay the course on these affordable housing projects. I look forward to having fewer empty lots
15 seconds.
and more neighbors. So build more housing for all.
Katrina Richardson.
Ms. Richardson, welcome.
My name is Katrina Richardson. I'm a resident of East Pasadena. I've been here all my life. But I've noticed, like other people have said, I've gotten 2 flyers. This one, front and back, and I got this one yesterday, front and back. So basically, everybody's saying the same things. I just wanted to highlight a few things. So number one, they are saying that there are going to be 151 units close to each other in proximity, and there's not enough parking. And I'm trying to find out, are you guys going to build a parking structure for all of these affordable housing, or how is that going to work? Because I park on the street, unfortunately, and the streets are full to capacity. It's sometimes like a musical chairs. Who's going to get this spot? Who's going to get that spot? And it's very stressful. So I'm just thinking, if you have all these people that don't have spots, how is that going to help the people who already live there? That's going to be some kind of conflict. So that's an issue. And number 2, I asked you for the parking structure. Is that going to be like the one they have on Sierra Madre Villa or Madre Street? They have like a parking structure that goes with the transit. I don't know if that's what you guys are thinking about. Number 3, it would be very important if you can ask the community what we need instead of what. I understand there's a housing crisis and a homeless crisis, but you have to understand, if you're gonna build all those homes, there's gonna be a lot of people there and they're gonna get sick. So it would be behoove you guys to think about a hospital. We only have 1 hospital in Pasadena.
15 seconds.
We need more hospitals, we need more restaurants, not all those high-rise affordable units that you're giving. Also the toxins, the traffic in the morning, the lighting, the delayed, we're not gonna be able to get anywhere. So I'm just asking you to think of those things, the historical presence of the city of Pasadena. It's 100+ years old. We wanna preserve some of that. And I feel like you're gonna mess up the city by putting all these blockade units,
Time is
especially
up.
on Colorado. Thank you for your time. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Eileen Liu. Oh, no, I was calling the next speaker. My apologies.
Thank you.
Then it will be followed by Michael Canavan and Julia Arnold, who are virtual.
Welcome, ma'am.
Hello, everyone. I'm also a resident from East Pasadena. I have lived there for many years. Today, I'm going to state my opinion about this affordable housing. First, I think as a local resident, I appreciate city's effort to expand affordable housing for low-income families. However, selecting the appropriate locations is equally important. Any new development should respect and complement the surrounding community and shouldn't create significant adverse impact on established neighborhood. And they should be planned in a manner that protects the health, safety, and quality of life of existing residents while remaining consistent with Pasadena's general plan. Also, the 6-story buildings appear inconsistent with Pasadena's general plan, because if you look at Colorado corridor, I just figured out that within 0.5 mile, within a half mile, there will be 4, 6 or 7-story affordable housing, which is so, such a density, because, bringing in another 1,000 people per building is not just a number. It's quite a job to ensure that local government can maintain the taxpayer subsidized housing, keep an eye on it so that these buildings won't become a liability, because once it happened, the specific adverse effect will be irreversible and destructive. So the character and the harmony of those neighborhoods will eventually collapse. Also,
15 seconds.
Okay. So the city shouldn't approve it and urge the developers to find an empty area, build a brand new community instead. So I think every public policy you advance has a lasting impact. The legacy we leave to future generations is eternal. What kind of legacy do we want to leave? The one of dignity, peace, and order, or the one of chaos, decay, or degradation?
Thank you.
This is a question that we have to ask.
Ma'am, thank you.
We have Michael Canavan, followed by Julia Arnold, who are virtual.
Hi, good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Michael Canavan. I wasn't planning to speak up front tonight. I had to address some things related to what people have been saying about these affordable housing developments on Colorado Boulevard. This is materially related to what we'll discuss on the agenda tonight. The primary reason we have a problem with chronic homelessness in Pasadena is a shortage of affordable housing. Other places have drug problems, other places have mental health. Not every place has Pasadena's housing costs. People not in the housing market may not know this, but Pasadena's rents are unaffordable to most working people. And that's why we have so many displaced and so many living on the street. To address the parking issue, the average Pasadenan may own 2 cars, but residents of affordable housing are not the average Pasadenan. Studies show that 34% of lower income Californians don't own a car at all. Likely that percentage is higher in Pasadena because we have a more walkable and transit accessible city than others in California. And for people worried about it, it's likely that some who don't have a guaranteed space will bring their cars. But if 1.5 parking spots or whatever is required is built for every home in these developments, it's likely that all of those will be taken by people bringing their cars, worsening traffic, street safety, and air quality. Affordable housing developers don't build parking for a good reason. It's expensive, as much as $60,000 per home. Developers can't build parking at this rate and still offer below market housing, which is so important to solving our housing crisis. I mean, this stretch of Colorado is an underused, wide commercial boulevard. When a housing project is proposed in a quiet single family neighborhood, this is exactly where opponents say to build it instead. So I think it's an excellent place to build new housing. I live in an apartment. I'm
15
glad it was allowed
seconds.
to be built. I'm sure all of the people commenting tonight are also glad that their homes were built. Let's extend that same benefit and generosity to people who are suffering without secure housing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next,
Next
our
speaker.
last virtual speaker is Julia Arnold.
Hi, my name is Julia Arnold. I'm here tonight to voice my support for the Housing Development Plan for Colorado Boulevard. I implore the committee to please stay the course and build this development. My housemate and I on Greenwood Avenue are excited for the new developments. Our rent is very difficult to afford, and the addition to the market will help us greatly. We're excited for the businesses that additional residents will attract to this area and just general foot traffic. It's really exciting to think about what could be built. This area of Pasadena is currently very sparse, and while we also have great transit options to get to other parts of Pasadena, we look forward to sharing those transit options and making them more robust with more users. Finally, we're very tired of the hateful flyers that have been delivered to our house. Not only is the grammar bad, with a writer too embarrassed to claim their words, the arguments are also inaccurate and hurtful to anyone who is not a millionaire or does not currently have a house. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I wonder if, out of respect for the speakers, we could have our Assistant City Manager and former Planning Director clarify the city's role in these developments.
Yeah, I was going to invite that, but before we do that, let me just state up front, this is not on the agenda, so we're limited in how much, in a response. But to all of the speakers, I would encourage you to stay engaged because, and reach out to your assembly member and state senator, because the result of state law is what you're seeing, and they're not finished yet. We haven't seen the beginning of it. I've tried to sound the alarm, and some of us have tried to sound the alarm. And it is going, state law and state lawmakers are changing our cities, and it's going to be permanent change. Every one of them drives a car, but they want to dictate to everyone else that we shouldn't. With that, I'll ask our assistant city manager to talk about it.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to provide just a real quick overview for the audience. When an affordable housing project is presented to the city, under state law, if there's a certain amount of affordability in the project, they can request what are called concessions or waivers, which essentially allow them to deviate from development standards in order to provide the affordability in the project. Parking is one of those. So we as a city cannot require parking for these affordable housing projects. So just so everybody understands, we're limited in what we can require. Parking is one of those that is allowed to be requested as a concession or a waiver. And so we cannot mandate that they have the on-site parking for these projects. So as these projects come up and they go through the commission review, as the mayor said, you're welcome to participate in those meetings as future projects come up, but we are very limited in our authority.
Well, and as are the commissions. And so I would encourage you to reach out to Assemblymember John Harabedian and Senator Sasha Perez and make your views known. Because this is all happening from Sacramento. Sacramento is redesigning our cities. And then we have to live with the consequences. Okay, with that,
I didn't call my name.
oh,
Luis Bravo. I was one of the first ones here.
oh, come on up, sir, and we'll find your card. And just identify yourself for the record.
Luis Bravo, a resident of Pasadena since 1969, which is all my life. In regards to the homeless in the area, from Hill to Sierra Madre, I lived there all my life. And the most homeless you see is maybe 10, 15 at the very most, sleeping on the benches or that. So when you talk about homeless, I really don't see it. Second, the project is 6 buildings within a mile. When you guys build from Fair Oaks to Lake, from Walnut, from actually the freeway, down to California, all of those projects went up, and there was no affordable thinking then. It was just see how much money we can make. So to me, the putting them all together in one place, so close together, is just overwhelming to the rest of us that live in the area. I live in Meredith, and then this will continue to overwhelm all of us. And for you guys to keep on saying that affordable housing for the homeless, I only see like 10 or 20, and they'd be the same guys for the last 10 years. I've seen them all right there on Allen, asking for money, underneath the bridge on Allen, and underneath the bridge on Madre, and a few over there by Jack in the Box. We used to have more when the 99-cent store was right there on Meredith. We had a lot more homeless. But other than that, there's only like 10 or 20, no more than that I can see every day. And I'm there every single day. So if you need to put some in there, put a couple, but don't put 4 in less than a quarter of a mile. It's ridiculous, you know? Everybody's complaining about parking. There is no parking. One side of the street on Meredith, there's no parking at all. The other side is that, and it's all apartments all around through there. So the main concern is also crime. When they first put up the first affordable housing in Pasadena on Villa and Craig, and then another one on Villa and 1 block east of Allen, the crime rate went up. Our
15
bicycles
seconds.
were stolen, and in reality, we're just here because too many places, too many homes are coming to too short a space. That's what it is. I don't mind the homeless and helping them out now, but maybe instead of having 7 floors, 3 floors. And instead of being that, then it'd be another thing, okay? But 4 in less than a quarter of a mile is ridiculous.
Okay, I think that,
I have one question.
sir,
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 who's the guy?
sir,
What's his name? A representative. You said it called who? Jermation?
oh, Senator, I'm sorry, Senator Sasha Perez and Assemblymember John Harabedian are the 2 names that, no, he wouldn't be here. In fairness, he's either in Sacramento or, yeah, but they're the ones who can suggest changes in law or reversal of state law that is imposing these mandates on us. Thank you. Okay, so let's move right along.
And Mayor, I wanted to ask if you would be amenable to switching the order of items 1 and 2?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, we'll do it to the end.
Okay, right. Because we do have Rabbi Grader from the Human Services Commission. He has a hard stop, so we could accommodate that. That would be great. Okay, so with that, I think we'll jump into item 2, please. Yes, pull up the PowerPoint. And I'm going to give an introduction, and then Jim's going to give part of the presentation as well. Thank you. So this is the kickoff discussion for establishing the year-round shelter. And as you're all aware, this has been one of the key items that was identified during this last budget cycle for the council, which was to establish a year-round shelter. And we know that this is going to be something that's going to take some time. It's going to be an interdepartmental effort. We have a team that's been put together. I'm leading the team. We've got housing staff, we've got planning staff, public works, parks and recreation, public health. We'll bring others in as the work progresses. And we have a work plan, and there's really 4 primary tasks for the work plan that we're working on now. The first is to determine the shelter details, have a conversation with this body and with the community and some of our commissions about what we think the shelter should be comprised of, what services it should provide, what population we're serving, the timing. Then we would do some site evaluations and look at cost evaluations. We are committed to doing monthly updates to this committee on our progress of the working group. There will be some meetings where we have more to report out than others, depending on what we're doing, but we are committed to providing a monthly update on the work that we're doing to keep moving this along. So tonight we wanted to talk about, again, the first 2 items, which is determining the shelter details and really what the timing is. And as I talked about, we're going to walk through some of these in more detail, but the population served, the size of the shelter, is it congregate or non-congregate? What type of services do we want to provide? And what is the timing consideration? And really, timing is important because it's going to dictate really, how we move forward. There's a shorter time frame, like in a year or less, and that's really going to have us look at an existing building probably and do a tenant improvement in an existing building, rather than something if we have a commitment for a longer time frame where we could look at building something from the ground up, or looking at some other alternative locations. I know Rose Palace is one that has been brought up in the past, and that's going to need either to be torn down altogether and rebuilt, or have extensive renovation, and so that's something we can talk about. But we really wanted to have the conversation about expectations on timing. And some of this could be a multi-prong approach where what do we do in the interim? If we're committed to doing the longer term shelter that's going to take a few years to get up and running, do we want something in the interim to relieve some of the pressure that we're feeling with the homeless services in the homeless on the street? So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Jim, and Jim's going to walk through the shelter details. And we have a staff recommendation in here for conversation, and we've got some comments, but this is really where we want to hear back from the committee on what they'd like to see moving forward. So I'll hand that over to Jim.
Thank you, Jennifer. So this is part of the construct that hopefully will guide this committee's consideration of some significant and important details in the year-round shelter. So the first is, what is the purpose? What do we hope to achieve here? And the staff recommendation is to provide a low-barrier, service-enriched temporary shelter to help people transition off the streets and into permanent housing or specialized care. Under the staff comment column, and you'll see this throughout, we point, as an example, to the Houston Super Hub model. Now, that is not the staff recommendation per se, but we want to highlight that because that is a model that has gained some national prominence. This is something that could be looked at, but probably perhaps on a smaller scale. And this Houston Super Hub model provides what is commonly referred to as wraparound service support for the clients. Population served. Staff recommendation is that this year-round shelter should serve single adults, men and women, who are housed in separate sleeping quarters with bathrooms and showers to ensure safety and privacy. As my colleague Jenny will note in her presentation of the point-in-time homeless count, single adults comprise virtually the totality of street homelessness in the last homeless count. And under the staff comments, single adults represent 100% of the 322 persons counted as unsheltered in the 2026 point-in-time homeless count. And then the size of the shelter, the number of beds. The staff recommendation is up to 100 beds. The staff notes are that the preliminary research conducted on sites with more than 100 beds are larger shelters and require more management resources. The number of beds that can be provided is also based on other factors, so this will be necessarily an estimate for further discussion by the committee. Next is the congregate versus non-congregate. The staff recommendation is for non-congregate, and that's based on our assessment that separate rooms with a communal bathroom and eating areas, or a tiny village concept, if not within an enclosed structure, including storage space for securing personal possessions. The length of stay, we think 90 to 180 days is the sweet spot here for occupancy. This is a target and not an absolute, depending on the client's needs and availability of services. Other services provided on site. Minimally, the shelter should have office space to accommodate on-site case management and housing navigation services, and additional services such as physical and behavioral health services could also be co-located at this location. And again, we point to the Houston Super Hub model, which provides these types of wraparound services that could be studied further. The site could also be designated to function as an access center where people experiencing homelessness are connected to various services, including potentially being placed in a shelter. And then a commercial food kitchen to prepare meals. A commercial kitchen is necessary to reduce ongoing operational costs. The alternative is to have food catered, which is less cost effective and is not generally preferred by shelter residents. Furthermore, a commercial kitchen also creates opportunities for community involvement. And that ends the discussion for the kind of criteria and details.
And I'll ask the mayor and committee members if you'd like to hear from Rabbi Grader and their comments from the Human Services. Okay, so Rabbi, if you'd like to come up now, I think we can take your comments.
Welcome. Thank you. Rabbi Joshua Levine Grader, I'm the CEO of Friends Indeed.
I'm also the chair of the Pasadena Human Services Commission. How long do I have? 5 minutes? How long? 2 minutes. Okay.
He's not a member of the public, he's a commissioner.
For, you're representing the shelter, yeah, okay.
Okay.
We'll give you a little bit longer.
Oh, thank you. Primarily, I'm here to say I hope that you received, I know you received and had a chance to review. The commission this past year produced a report on comparing emergency shelter to transitional housing. And I'm glad my colleague, Commissioner Doria is here, and my other colleague, Commissioner Orlando, who is a professor at Cal Poly Pomona, did a lot of this work on this report. And this is his field of study at the university. And originally we were going to present why we thought transitional housing was a better option than emergency shelter. We still do believe that, but having heard and understood that emergency shelter is kind of going down the tracks here, we kind of adapted in saying that it's emergency shelter is useful. It has its use. I can speak from the point of view of Friends Indeed in terms of some of the things I saw. 90 to 180 days is an incredibly long time to be in a congregant or an emergency shelter. And in terms of building it that quickly, I can tell you from our bad weather shelter at the church, I see the pastors here, in a year we couldn't get bathrooms or things, kitchen made, and that's in a small thing. So my concern is that it's going to take a long time to build a shelter. And the staffing is expensive. You will need 3 sets of 8-hour staff. If this is a 24/7 shelter where people can stay and not have to leave, 100 people is a lot of people to have in one place. But transitional housing and using this master lease motel program is, while it is potentially more expensive in the longer run, it has, the startup costs are almost none. I can say we have 6 rooms that we master lease at a local motel, and these are rooms ready to go. They require much less staffing and any renovation. These are rooms that also are cared for by the motel owners. We had one of the owners of the La Casa Motel at our commission, ready to go with his 40 rooms. Other motels have said that they're ready to go. And so I would argue, if we're going to have shelter, which does have its place, transitional housing is the best practice to have with the shelter. Because once folks are in shelter, it's much harder to move from shelter into permanent housing or permanent supportive housing without this transition. And we want to have people move out of the shelter. Like I said, we don't want folks there 180 days. That's a long time to be in a congregant or even in a divided type room in that way. But motels, you get your own room, you get services there, and we're already doing it, and it happens much faster. So I'm just concerned that it's going to take a long time to build a shelter. And in the meantime, we have this opportunity. I would still argue that transitional housing is a better option to proceed. We could put 100 people in motel rooms. I said this a year and a half ago. Tomorrow, we have motels that are ready to do this, several in our city. So it just requires the funding to do that. So I would argue that it's a better option. I invite the public to look at our report, and I don't know if you're allowed to ask me questions.
Mr. Cole?
Yeah, the challenge with transitional housing on that model, which I 100% agree with, is a very important next step up from an emergency shelter, is many people out on the street today, as you well know, are deeply troubled and need wraparound services. And those are more difficult to provide on a consistent basis in a motel where people are in their separate rooms and you don't have, you know, a 24-hour environment. And so right now, today, we have no place to take someone who is willing to begin the journey toward being able to cope with the challenges of living by themselves. I just visited a motel in South LA, part of the Inside Safe program, and I know that we would run it better than they do in Los Angeles. But the reality is that it's far from ideal. And so I am much more focused on having both.
Sure.
So how do you provide in a motel voucher kind of environment or a master lease program? How do you provide that consistent service? Because once people are in a place where they can lock the door, if they're struggling with mental illness, if they're struggling with drug and alcohol addiction, if they have become embedded in prostitution, drug dealing, and all of the things that people, you know, experience out on the streets, how do you, in that environment, provide the wraparound services that people need?
Appreciate that.
Including nutrition.
Sure. We run 6 rooms at the moment, but we did it during COVID, I mean, where the rooms were full. Every one of the people who are in our rooms are assigned a case manager who they check in with almost daily. There are rules to follow. If we were going to operate a more comprehensive transitional housing in motels like they do in Monrovia, then you have a service provider on site, you have security on site, you have food availability on site. But they have case managers and there are rules to follow, and you have to follow them, and you have to be working in our program. You have to be working towards the next step. You're not moving into this motel and then that's it. You have to be actively working with our case managers towards next steps, and if you're not doing that, then you will be exited from our program. But it does require all of those things that you said, but in a larger program, it would have 24-hour on-site someone there or available.
What's the critical mass, Rabbi, for that? Is it 30 beds? Is it 15 beds? Is it 50 beds?
In terms of
Or
how
rooms,
many,
as the case may be?
say again?
Or rooms?
Yeah,
How many
so,
rooms is a critical mass to be able to have that, that kind of?
I would say, 30 to 40 rooms would make the most sense. I think any less is not worth it. Although, you know, any room, we'd be operating more at Friends Indeed if we had more funding. But any bigger, I think it's, you know, it gets more complex. I would like to see, you know, 3 motels of 40 rooms where we have different staff attached to each of those, rather than one motel of, you know, 100 rooms. That becomes an ability to focus on helping people.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Jones?
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks, Rabbi, for presenting. The motels that you mentioned, do they have services on site?
The ones that the 6 rooms that we have, they're not on site. The motel, so we're not there. We're there daily.
Yeah.
I mean, we check in, but these are, the motel operates the motel. They know if something happens, they'll try and call us first if it's during the daytime. They also know that if something is, you know, escalating, they do have, you know, they knew that they have to call the police. They don't want to do that, but it's part of the rules that people know if you're not, if you're, you know, having guests or being loud or disabusing the property,
The motels don't have security on site, so they'd have to like.
The motels, yeah, I mean, the motel has, like any motel,
Yeah.
they'll have a overnight, manager.
Mhm.
But if we were to do a larger program, yeah, it would be 24-hour security.
And I guess the residents that you're helping get into the motels, do they require like permanent services or permanent supportive services?
Not all of
Or-
them, no.
Yeah.
These are folks who are working towards, towards housing. I mean, I think we would have to discuss
Yeah.
who's getting served, because I do believe that a shelter does have the ability to, if it's open 24 hours a day and someone needs to be brought there immediately, then that has its virtues, absolutely. But I think in partnership, when someone's ready, we should have someplace for them to go in terms of this step. I just think this step solves the problem that the city all of us would like, which is having less people on the street, and it can happen faster.
I at least my experience in the district I represent, a lot of the folks that are living on the street need some services and some care and support.
Yes.
And I think to be able to, we'd have to differentiate the population that we're truly trying to serve, right? I don't think the residents that are living on Fair Oaks or by Robinson Park or at Memorial Park, from my experience, you could just put them in a motel. I mean, they've told me they wouldn't go. Right,
Okay.
and because they need services, I think is what has come up from them, has come up from our port team when I'm traveling with them. And I think we would unintentionally perhaps recreate a Centennial Place. And then I bring that up not to shame them or service provider. It's just because like the way that model was set up wasn't a successful model, right? Because like somebody had to live in a unit that required supportive services, and they had to exit their home and go outside where there was activity, and and go get the services down in the basement. And so they had to leave where they were at to go get the services. And I think to have like that care and that support on site for a lot of the population that's living on the street is, to me, is a critical path to success. And I think for the motels, it would be somebody that, they don't really require those, at least in my opinion, my experience, they wouldn't require the extensive services.
So I will say, for the rooms that we have, each person living there is attached to a case manager who checks in with them every day. Like I said, if we were to have a larger, like they have in Monrovia, like an actual, like this home motel is a transitional housing, then yes, there would be much more effective services, security, someone there 24/7. Yes, the one in Monrovia has Volunteers of America. They have staff there 24 hours a day, as well as security. I know some of my colleagues here from Union Station have experienced that. Just the difference is Centennial, this is not permanent housing.
No,
in
I
our
agree,
services, 30 days.
Yeah.
And if you're not, we're working towards getting folks into the next phase. But it can be up to, if it gets past 4 or 6 months, that's too long. People are getting too
Would you kick them out of the motel?
Well, we'd be working actively to get them transitioned into, we've been successful in, when we can find places to foot folks. But yes, there are different levels, and we'd have to, hire acuity people. We'd have to, create something. But I just think it has more opportunity for success than emergency shelter. At the same time, I know if there was someplace to go, that the fire department, someone can bring someone 24/7, that has its value, absolutely.
Yeah.
I wish we had one now in the summer. We have one in the winter, but I think that has its value. But this report, I hope you'll read and see, just has some, key.
That's the report you sent us, right? Through email? Yeah, I read it. I appreciate you submitting it. And I guess I agree, it's not permanent supportive housing, but
Yeah.
I mean, 2 days at Centennial Place from the way it was designed, 30 days, I mean, that experience is not, it's not good for the residents. And I'm speaking on behalf of them.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I'm not going to speak to that, but
But I appreciate your service.
sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes?
Oh, no, anything else? Thank you, Reverend.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay,
Questions of staff now, or wait until after public
we have
comment?
public comments first, yeah.
Okay.
Why don't we do that? Okay. We have 11 cards.
Yes.
This
I'm
one.
wondering, should we do virtual? 2 minutes? Okay. We're going to start with Mary Forrest, who is virtual. Mary? Mary?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, ready?
Yes.
My name is Mary Forrest. I am a District 6 resident, a Pasadena native, and I've been a homeowner here for 11 years. I'm also the mother to 4 young boys. I'm speaking to you tonight because I have growing concerns about public safety and the increasing visibility of homelessness throughout Pasadena, and I don't think a shelter is an answer to the problem. My children attend St. Philip the Apostle School, and over the past year, we've seen homeless individuals around the church and school, particularly near the public library. Last year, after a doctor's appointment, I was dropping my son back off at school, and a man was sitting out in front of the church who was clearly intoxicated and in distress. A woman from the church was trying to convince him to accept help, and he refused. I'm not only concerned for my son's safety, but also the well-being of the man who was clearly struggling. In the months that followed, people began camping outside the library next to the school. I submitted multiple reports through the Citizen Service Center, but the issue persisted. I have also known of police who have offered services to the homeless, and they have refused them. I've personally witnessed people doing drugs in public, or on multiple occasions, individuals exposing themselves indecently. Parents should not have to worry about their children being exposed to drug use, dangerous debris, or inappropriate behavior on their way to school or while visiting parks. Young children are naturally curious, and the possibility of picking up a used needle or encountering someone in crisis is deeply concerning. From what I witnessed, many people also appear to be struggling with addiction, serious mental health challenges. Is the shelter going to be offering services to help addicts? My hope is that more funding can go to support port and HOPE teams. I also have questions about how the city's approach will affect Pasadena in the long term. I worry that expanding shelters and sanctioned sites could unintentionally attract more people experiencing homelessness
15
if
seconds.
surrounding communities aren't following similar. How do we measure success? If housing and supportive services are available, what percentage of people are using them? If they are declining the services, what additional strategies are used to help the individuals and the broader community? Would it be helpful to implement a 500-foot buffer around schools? It would be nice when a call was made about an encampment that it was quickly and actively
Time is up.
enforced.
Sorry.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Another virtual speaker, Anthony Manusos.
Welcome.
Anthony? Anthony, you seem to be muted on your end. We could come back. Okay, we're gonna start with Sonia Burnt, then Joanne Long, followed by Cliff Wampler.
Welcome.
How long is it, 2 minutes? Okay. The council's top 5 budget priorities for fiscal year 2027 included not only investing in a year-round shelter, but also investing in more transitional housing for our unhoused. I strongly urge you to give careful consideration to the excellent report submitted by the Human Services Commission. The report concludes that, for the many reasons stated there, using motels as transitional housing is the most efficient and effective way to move folks from the street to permanent housing. I personally saw very positive results during the Project Room Key program during COVID. I really want you to look at the Project Home Key. They did have on-site services. I have a dear friend who was there for 19 months and has been in permanent housing for 4 years since then. But they could even give them their medication trays. You can write 10 prescriptions, but if you don't ensure that they take their medicine, all it took for him, he had mental illness, 1 pill, 1 medication, and that took care of his psychosis. And we have all levels of people out there. So I appreciate that some need very intense. But the rabbi says we have all these motel rooms. Now, we don't have to do this, we don't have to do this, comprehensive inventory and map, citywide assessment. That's death by 1,000 cuts. With the extreme heat waves we've been experiencing and the personal safety issues encountered living on the street, our city must move quickly to shelter these most vulnerable residents. And to the first speaker, she said,
15 seconds.
Isn't the answer. What is the answer? She said, Port. Port provides a service. They provide a Band-Aid, they provide trust, and according to Port, almost all the people eventually agree to go in housing. So these people coming up saying, all these people refusing housing, come on. Let's listen to the experts out in the field, our Port people. Thank you.
Before we proceed, I just want to make sure we're not conflating things here. My recollection, and I prepare to be corrected, but my recollection is the council's priority was a year-round bad weather shelter, not am I incorrect about that?
No, you've made that comment a number of times because we have a year-round bad weather shelter.
No, but expanding that, is my, what
I thought it was Jenny, I think Jenny can respond.
I looked into this because I had the same question. And there is some ambiguity about exactly what was decided on. Based on the research I did, looking into our own public documents, I came to the conclusion that the priority that was established was for establishing a year-round shelter and expanding transitional housing. So transitional housing is mentioned in that goal. That's my opinion based on the research I did. There were inconsistencies in some of the documents. But I rewatched the meetings and looked at the minutes and the presentations, and
I'd like to see those because my recollection is a year-round bad weather shelter, but again.
What does that mean though, Mayor? We have a bad weather shelter.
No. Expanding what we talked about, my recollection is the opportunity to have a expanded bad weather shelter at Rose Palace. That's my recollection. And what it means is, I think it's pretty clear by definition, when the weather gets bad, hot, for example, cold, rainy, then we would have an opportunity to put people there.
We have that.
I don't think but it wasn't.
I think it was very clear, Mayor, that we wanted
Mr. Cole,
every night.
That's your recollection.
No, I think it was very clear from the council that it was every night.
Mr. Cole, I'm glad you're clear on it. Again, that's my recollection. But I prefaced it with I'm prepared to be corrected, but I'm not.
But not by me.
I'd want to review.
But not by me.
Well, no. I'd want to review the documents myself and the tapes. But that's my recollection. It has nothing to do with you. I'm just explaining to you what my recollection is.
But my point is we actually have a bad weather shelter hold on. We have a bad weather shelter when it's cold or when it's hot. We have one now. What we don't have is a shelter when we don't have bad weather. That's what the council asked for, is when we don't have bad weather.
Now's not the time to debate it. I'm telling you what my recollection is. We have a bad weather shelter, yes, but it's limited. And so.
By what?
Limited by space.
By bad weather. It's only open when we have bad weather.
Right, but it's limited in space. And again, we don't have to debate it now. That's my recollection. And Mr. Jones, I don't know what your recollection is, but.
Yeah, I don't know if Philip is here, because Philip gave the presentation for the workshop. And I thought there was that chart that as well. there is a chart about our priorities.
Yeah, so the way staff has been, what we heard and the direction that we've been going in is working on nothing related to the weather, that we are looking at a year-round shelter. And that's why we had kind of started to outline what some of the, we would have, there's possibility of having wraparound services, the length of stay, all those types of things, looking at different models, but it wouldn't be tied to the weather. Separately, if there wanted to be a look at expanding the bad weather shelter, that could be a separate action. But we've been looking at this as a year-round shelter that is not related to the weather.
I'd like to see the underlying documents and maybe the meetings. But that's my recollection. Okay, but it can easily be, I hope, resolved. It sounds like there was some ambiguity. I don't know what that ambiguity was, but. Okay, we can proceed.
Okay, it's going to be Joanne Long, followed by Cliff Wampler, Reverend Sharon Richer, Antonio Madrid.
Welcome.
And then so on.
Hi, thanks. Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Jo, and I'm a Pasadena resident in District 4. And I have been an advocate for a small number of unhoused neighbors in Pasadena for several years now. And I'm really glad that the city is moving forward with the year-round shelter planning. It's been far too long that our unsheltered neighbors have had to wait for help. As we know, it's very critical to get people off the streets as soon as they lose shelter, and something like an emergency shelter, I think, could really help with that particular issue. The longer people stay unhoused, the harder it is to find housing for them, and the greater the exposure to that individual to trauma, significant trauma on the streets. No matter the good intentions of the service providers that we have here in Pasadena, there unfortunately is a long wait. Everybody is at capacity, and we've unfortunately we've seen that even after waiting years, places that are offered to unhoused people are often outside of Pasadena, or sometimes just like one situation I've seen where they waited several years and then the place was not really in great condition. While planning the year-round shelter, I think we should also acknowledge that there are going to be more people that will be losing housing as the affordability crisis grows. And we should think about what their experience will look like with the emergency shelter. So these are people in Pasadena right now that are housed that may not be living with mental health or addiction issues and have not been exposed to long-term trauma of the streets. Examples I've seen are people that have people I've seen that have become newly unhoused. They have lost income and they can't afford to pay their rent anymore. They've lost access to transportation. Their car was towed and that's where they were sleeping before. They've had a medical emergency, needed surgery, and that has also led to a loss of income. I was wondering if there was a way to include this group in the analysis that you're doing when you're planning for the shelter. I know a lot of what was shown tonight was from the PIT data.
Time's up, I'm sorry.
Okay, just can I add, I'd also like to ask that you consider that when you're planning the emergency shelter, that you consider whether you would feel comfortable if you had a family member staying there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cliff Wampler.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council. Cliff Wampler. I'm here also representing Safe Parking Program at Trinity Lutheran and in connection with Friends Indeed. I know I'm thankful for any kind of housing, be it temporary or permanent, and I'm glad that the council is considering these issues and looking into areas to pursue this, because any roof over your head, any bathroom that's accessible, any air conditioning in the summer is I'm truly grateful for. In summertime, you're just mentioning bad weather. It seems to me a bad weather shelter in the summer would have to be something during the daytime when the heat's really bad, because I know now we search for a library, we search for a mall, search for somewhere to be cool, to be out of the 90 degree temperature. Also probably beneficial at night because mosquitoes do bite. And if you want to look at the calves on my legs, you can see the mosquito bites. But I don't have West Nile, so that's good news. So I appreciate your looking into this. I appreciate any more studies you can do on this and any more feedback that you're open to. Thank you.
Reverend Sharon Richer, Anthony Madrid, Joshua Grader.
Hi, I'm Pastor Sharon Richter from Trinity. A point of clarification for the mayor who was confused about how often the shelter operates. It operates when the weather is either cold or rainy or windy, and it only operates from the end of November to the middle of April. So it's not year-round. You have nothing for the summer as far as I know.
No, I that's
Does
my
it operate at Trinity?
No, I understand. That's in part my recollection that we want to expand that to also hot weather. And,
Well, yes,
yeah,
but
that was
Cliff is right, that if you're going to expand it for hot weather, you got to run it during the day. So that's just something that you need to
But
consider.
that's, you put your finger right on it. Thank you. I appreciate the clarity. Because that is what I recall that we had. Now, that may not have not ended up being the priority, but it was part of the discussion.
No, what I was saying was that you were saying that we currently have year-round bad weather. We don't.
No,
It only operates from the end of
Then
November
I may
to
have
the middle.
misspoken, but I was responding to Mr. Cole that we wanted to, we have, I realize we have a bad weather shelter, but it's limited. And my recollection of the discussion, and again, it may have not ended up being the priority, but my recollection of the discussion is that we recognize that bad weather isn't just rain or cold. That
Right.
now we also have very hot conditions. That's my recollection.
Okay, so I just
So
would
thank
like
you
to
for reminding
thank
me.
you for considering this all very carefully. I would like to speak in favor both of for a year-round shelter. I think that's a good idea for emergency purposes, but also in favor of transitional housing. I'm very encouraged to see that you are not considering a congregate model, but rather one that has separate either rooms or cubicles for people, because I think this is really important for privacy and for mental health and for dignity and for providing the services that need to be provided. So I would like to encourage you all to continue on this path. Thank you.
Thank you.
Antonio Madrid, followed by Joshua Grader, Erica Foy.
My name's Antonio Madrid. I'm here. I really strongly encourage the benefit of safe parking. It eliminates people from parking on the public streets or places where they don't belong. It is a safer proposition as opposed to trying to find a safe place. The community that's built around it, it helps supports people to get back on the right track. And that's essentially what I need to say. But thank you for listening.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker.
Joshua Grader, Erica Foy.
Ms. Foy?
Wait, there's no Josh Grader?
He left.
Okay.
Hi there, good evening. As Pasadena considers a permanent shelter, the central question is, how can we help the greatest number of Pasadena residents in need while using public dollars wisely and building something we can sustain? The only way we can answer this question is by ensuring we have clear objectives, measurable outcomes, and actual evidence that it will, in fact, succeed. To get to success, we first must know what the problem is that we are trying to solve. Who specifically would this shelter be intended to serve? Will Pasadena residents and people with established ties to Pasadena receive priority, or will this operate as a regional facility? Pasadena's Port and Hope teams have years of experience working with people experiencing homelessness and know that many repeatedly decline services. How would a shelter change those outcomes? Second, what would the operating model be? Would this be a harm reduction shelter, or what would that mean in actual practice? Communities across the country have raised concerns about harm reduction approaches, including questions about their long-term effectiveness. Third, why this location? If Rose Palace is in fact considered, what criteria would be used to determine whether it is in fact the best site? In choosing a location, will the city evaluate neighborhood impacts, public safety, proximity to schools, transit access, and existing homeless services? Students, hospital employees, and other residents rely heavily on Fillmore Station. How would an increased shelter-related activity affect their ability to use it safely and comfortably? Fourth, how will success be measured? Would success be measured by whether Pasadena's unsheltered homeless population declines, or are you looking at a different metric? Fifth, are there other avenues to reduce homelessness? Will the city compare this shelter investment against prevention strategies such as rental assistance and targeted case management? Glendora recently reported a 40% reduction in its unsheltered homeless population while emphasizing on prevention and early intervention. Pasadena should examine every available approach before deciding which investment will produce the greatest benefit. Lastly, can we afford this? Residents are now being asked to approve a new fire parcel tax, along with PUSD and library
Time is up.
taxes. And now you are considering another long-term major financial commitment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Sway.
Bert Newton, Melissa Eves.
If you hear your name, please make your way forward.
Sure, yeah. Good evening. My name is Bert Newton. I spent 15 years here in Pasadena doing direct service for people with mental illness who had ended up on the streets or in jail. I did this through an FSP program with Pacific Clinics. We worked with people to get them housed and stabilized, so I'm intimately familiar with what it takes to get people housed who have multiple problems, such as mental illness, substance addiction, often physical problems and other problems, and what it takes to keep them housed. I can tell you that a traditional year-round shelter can be helpful, but it's very limited in what it can do. Very often I worked with people who would refuse to go into a congregate shelter for a number of reasons, such as they would tell me the fights that would occur there, items get stolen, or just because they're dealing with anxiety or other mental health issues and it's hard to be in a congregate shelter. But they almost never, in fact, I don't remember them ever refusing a hotel room. We had money for that. And so we use that a lot because for people who couldn't do shelter. I know hotel rooms and other transitional housing is not the answer for everyone. There's some people who need even more intense intervention than that. But transitional housing or motel rooms are very effective in my experience. And as the report from the Human Services Commission says, we also need affordable housing for people to transition into, and also because that helps keep people off the street. The best way to avoid homelessness is not to let it happen in the first place. So we need to support the affordable housing coming to our city, especially the projects proposed for East Pasadena. And they break through a historic segregation pattern in our city because they're getting into East Pasadena now. The number one cause of homelessness is housing costs. Cities with lower housing costs have lower homelessness, and that's across the nation. So we need to support that. Thanks.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Melissa Eves.
Hi, I'm Melissa Eves. I just have a few questions. I've lived in Pasadena since '97, and my questions stem from the PowerPoint that was put up. Just very basic things. I'm not sure how this model differs from Union Station. Number one. Number two, where, as Erica Foy mentioned, where's the money coming from for all of this? And I saw the number of 322 people identified as homeless in the community, and I wondered if any effort was made to identify how many of those 322 suffered from addiction or mental illness, because I do believe that very different treatments are required, and I'm not sure that housing them all in one area is a great idea. And I know that there's a dearth of mental health hospitals, but there are still some, especially some in the area. And one thing that has resonated with me, I've listened to a lot of commentary about this, and one of our very own local addiction specialists Dr. Drew Pinsky has said repeatedly, if providing 4 walls was the solution to someone with addiction or mental illness, I would not have had a career for the past 30 or 40 years. So those are my questions that hopefully at some point we can get some answers to.
Thank you.
We're gonna try the virtual comment from Anthony Manusos. Mr. Manusos?
Yes, thank you. I think, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you. So I'm really pleased that the City Council has agreed to prioritize creating a year-round shelter for unhoused neighbors, no matter what kind of weather we're having. Making Housing and Community Happen has advocated for providing housing for unhoused neighbors for many, many years, and we've also helped start the city's first safe parking program. I support both a year-round shelter and more interim or transitional housing, such as motel rooms. I agree completely with Rabbi Grader that motel rooms with case management is a really effective model. It can come online very quickly and it's urgently needed. For year-round shelters, I support the non-congregate model that the staff recommends, since women and people with mental illness often feel unsafe in congregate shelters for understandable reasons. I also want the city to consider diverse locations for the shelter to ensure that the best location is chosen in terms of access to service and transportation, as well as open space and parks. While some have advocated the Rose Palace in southwest Pasadena as a site for the year-round shelter, it's at the far end of the city, away from services and open spaces, and it is essentially a warehouse that's going to require extensive renovation. For this reason, I don't think this location would be suitable. Finally, I want to commend churches because they played a vital role in ensuring the success of shelters. The track record of the Safe Parking Program at Trinity and its Bad Weather Shelter and the Safe Haven Program at All Saints demonstrate how effective churches can be in providing supportive community for unhoused neighbors. Anyway, please pursue this critical project on an urgent basis so our unhoused neighbors will not have to continue to suffer in the heat in our unsafe streets. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We have one more, Michael Canavan. He filled out a virtual in-person card. One more time, Michael Canavan.
Okay.
I apologize for that. Filled out the wrong button. I want to speak in support of a year-round shelter in Pasadena. I'll leave the question of whether to pursue an emergency congregate model or non-congregate transitional shelter to our many expert service providers who have already spoken, but I will say that building an entirely new shelter, while a worthwhile goal, spends a precious resource many of the people on the street don't have, which is time. This proposal has been a long time coming already, and I worry about the level of suffering we're allowing to persist while such a project is pursued, which could take many years. I want to say I empathize as well with residents concerned with the impact of homelessness on their community. I live in the part of the city where it is impossible to ignore. But it's important to mention that those impacts are happening today, regardless of whatever we decide in the months and years to come. I think there's reason to believe that with dedicated security and case management, as well as hopefully more permanent supportive housing and affordable housing, as residents leave a transitional shelter and move to more permanent housing, we can help people homeless right now while also mitigating the impacts to the community. As far as the cost, I also think you could make the argument that it's more expensive for the city to have so many sleeping on the street than in a city supported shelter. There are, chronic and serious and deep economic costs to dealing with that kind of situation. And I think a city supported shelter could help in terms of reduced calls for police service as well as healthcare costs. Thank you so much.
Okay. Okay, so let's start with council member questions. Mr. Cole and Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mayor. And let me clarify, because I think I was being unfair to you, and I apologize for that. I now understand what you mean by a year-round, all bad weather shelter. You mean a bad weather shelter that operates outside of the current seasonal availability. And so, again, I think that's helpful to understand. I think there are very many reasons why that's not particularly practical, but I misunderstood. I've consistently misunderstood what you were driving at.
Me too.
I'm glad we have that clarified. And again, I think that what I understood, and you have a different understanding.
That's been clarified.
Yeah, is that the port team and the help team, have no place to take people when we don't have a bad weather shelter operating, whether during the current season or year-round, if we extended it. And many people have talked about there are people who are service resistant. On any given day, depending upon what the choices are offered, that may be true. But there are people who desperately want to get off the streets and for whom we don't have enough motel vouchers. And as Mr. Jones and I have explored, motel vouchers are not necessarily the solution to folks with high acuity needs. So here's some questions for the staff. So Houston is a national model, but there are models right here in Southern California that I would encourage the staff to both visit and have candid talks with the staff, because the operational staff are going to have real insight into the, if we had to do it over again, we would do it this way. Here are the things that worked really well. Here are the things we had to change. Here are the things that don't work as well. And there are Project Room Key projects in El Monte, which I would recommend. There's a comprehensive wraparound service model in Pomona, which I would recommend. The city of Santa Monica has a couple of these shelters, and has just taken a vote by the city council to take over from LASA and the coordinated entry system to focus their attention on their community needs versus the regional needs. Reference has been made to Monrovia. Long Beach has a good model. And Santa Ana stood up their shelter in 28 days. And it continues to operate and is a model shelter. I'm not suggesting that I'm not suggesting we could stand up a shelter in 28 days, but it doesn't necessarily have to take 28 years, right? So there are ways in which we could kind of get out of our own way. Sometimes Pasadena makes things more difficult. We, for example, don't have a commercial kitchen at Trinity Lutheran for the bad weather shelter because we're, for a 1 meal a day for 50 people, 40 or 50 times a year, we're having the same standards you would have for a restaurant that serves 3 meals a day every day. And so I think we need to be, we need to take a hard look. So I would encourage you to take a look at all of those models, and I think you'll learn a lot from them. I'm pleased that you have taken personal responsibility, Ms. Page. Is there a project manager under you? Because obviously you will oversee and spearhead this effort, but is there one person?
Not yet, but that doesn't mean that we won't assign one. So I think we wanted to have this initial conversation, see where we're going, and then if that's what we need to do to get the work done, we can talk about that.
I would encourage you to broaden the team, even if it's just an advisory committee of folks like Reverend Grader or city commissioners and or Union Station, Door of Hope, Shepherd's Door, folks who, I mean, the city staff are great, but none of them have ever operated a homeless shelter. And some people have in our community. And I think it would be helpful to have them part of your team in whatever way makes the most sense. Those are details that we always leave to staff, and we trust you. But I think that city staff have a limited bandwidth and level of expertise, and this is something very different than what we have directly done in the past. And we probably won't directly do this either. We will probably contract this out to a service provider, that's my guess, as we do now with the bad weather shelter. I want to ground this for just 1 second. We have a 5-year plan. I think we're 3 years into the 5-year plan. And by the way, this isn't just a city council priority, whatever the exact configuration of it is. A year-round shelter is part of our 5-year plan for addressing homelessness, along with transitional housing. And I strongly think that there's no magic answer. I think the year-round shelter is just a Band-Aid, but it's a necessary Band-Aid to stop the bleeding. Because the longer people stay out on the street, the more likely they are to be victimized, the more likely they are to be traumatized, the more likely they are to develop symptoms of mental illness or have their mental illness aggravated, the more likely they are to either acquire an addiction or to have their addiction aggravated, and the more likely they are to die. And so for all those reasons, getting people off the street sooner rather than later is critical. It is not a solution that lasts for 6 months or 12 months or 18 months, but it's a solution right now to get someone off the street, which we do not have. And so I think that a mix of a congregate shelter with private rooms, as the staff recommendation outlines, and a master lease, because I think the questions that both Councilmember Jones and I asked of Rabbi Grader illuminate that you can't lump all homeless individuals into one category, that people have a range of needs, abilities, and levels of acuity. Finally, the matter of cost will be make or break. And I think that a lot of thought needs to go into that. But I also agree that in the long run, we will save money if we have a place for folks. And I don't mean to at all diminish the comments made about putting money into services and prevention. We absolutely need to be doing that. And that is a very important component of alleviating the current crisis that we live on, or that we live under, including the provision of affordable housing generally. But right now, I've talked to members of the port team and the help team, and their biggest frustration is they can refer people, but there's no place for people to get off the street unless it's the bad weather shelter. And the bad weather shelter, it operates sporadically, right? Some nights it's open, some nights it's not. And even the police have a hard time remembering, is this a day where we're open? So I think we're off to a good start. I appreciate the hard work that's been done. And I want to reiterate that I think that there are resources of both local shelters, local community resource people, that we can put together a comprehensive plan and have this move forward, hopefully sooner rather than later.
Thank you, Mr. Cole. Mr. Jones?
Thanks, Mayor. And going back to your comment about the bad weather shelter, you are correct. At least what I remember was during the discussion, we did talk about weather outside of just cold weather. We brought up, and I think Mr. Cole agreed as well, we brought up it being hot and making sure that we can protect our residents during heat waves. And so, yeah, that's part of the discussion I remember from the budget priorities. And I think the actual priority was the year-round shelter, right? Yeah, okay. So I think we all agree on that. To me, it's the priority population.
Well, and just for everyone's clarity, we do have in the staff report. We have a purpose. And so if we're all in agreement on the purpose, I think it's good for clarifying for the public as well.
Yeah.
And that the purpose would be to provide low barrier, service enriched temporary shelter to transition persons off the streets and into permanent housing or specialized care. So that's
Yeah.
the purpose of the work that we're doing. And so that's what's in the report. If we're good with that, then that's how we would continue.
Yeah, it sounds good to me. But I guess when you bring up services, would services be mandatory if you're going to the shelter?
Those are some of the things that we want to talk about in times like what low barrier. So we're looking at having very low requirements in order to have someone be able to initially be able to stay there, but to be able to offer services so that services are available, wraparound services are there. But those are some of the things that, I think we can talk about.
So what would be the low barrier? Like, you can show up there, but could you be under the influence, or could you bring weapons, or could you bring pets, or?
I'll let Jenny respond to that.
So low barrier can mean has a lot of different potential elements, but typically we're talking about things like no income requirements. There likely wouldn't be a requirement for somebody for sobriety. Not that they could be under the influence or, violate shelter rules while they're there, but it likely wouldn't be a site where they were drug testing, for instance. So those are just two examples, no employment requirements. 15, 20 years ago, these were all things that you had to do before you got a shelter bed. And it was ineffective because, good luck getting a job and getting clean and doing all those things if you don't have a bed and a roof over your head. So that's really what low barrier means. It's let's bring you inside. Yes, you have to follow the rules. No, you cannot bring weapons.
Yeah.
But let's bring you inside because you need to sleep and have safety before you can, do all of the things necessary to get to permanent housing.
Yeah, okay, I appreciate that. And then,
One thing?
oh, sure, go ahead.
On this exact point.
Yeah, go ahead, yeah.
I do think one issue that needs to be resolved, which Councilmember Jones embedded in his question, which is some services will need to be mandatory. That there is a sometimes religious, I don't mean that literally religious, but a kind of religious-like sense that people have a right to refuse services. And some people are not in a position to accept services, but that is a key of a lesson, I think, is that at some point, services do need to be mandatory. That simply offering them and having someone continue to struggle with issues that services would address is not sustainable. And again, I think we have the situation on Holly Street as a sobering example, pardon the pun.
Yeah.
And that is a tough line to draw, but I'm with you on that being really important as an element of ensuring the well-being of participants and the well-being of the surrounding community.
I appreciate that. Jenny?
Yeah, I think Jenny had a comment.
Oh, go ahead.
So I just also wanted to add, sorry for overlooking this part of your question, services also can mean a lot of different things. It can mean case management, right? Working with a case manager on a housing plan. It can mean mental health services, substance use services, et cetera. So there are degrees there. I think absolutely participation in case management will be required. That's for the type of shelter that we're discussing and planning for, that's a common requirement. Unlike the bad weather shelter, right? There's no requirements to have a case manager there.
Right, it's separate. So the shelter, I don't mean to cut you off, the shelter that you are recommending, services would be required.
I think that's something that we haven't decided yet, but I think that's likely. I mean, that's a kind of common model. It's how our existing shelters in our city work. It's how the Pathway Home shelters work.
Okay, because I heard something different. I'm sorry, because I heard something different about, like, it wouldn't be required, but you're telling me that it
Again,
would
I
be.
think the differentiation is between like case management services and behavioral health services. You know, research shows that mandating behavioral health services is not that effective. On the other side, you know, not participating in case management services is definitely not effective. So I think we just need to be really clear about our terms.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's so many different pieces of this that we still have to decide. And so I think it's a little premature to say like what the rules are going to be, what's going to be required, et cetera, because we haven't really, you know, honed in on the exact model that we're going to be pursuing. But I think, you know, what we've discussed thus far, likely at least case management, participation in your housing plan, engagement with your case management, you know, those types of services would likely be a requirement.
But then that would be, at least from my experience with Port and Hope and talking to the residents, the case management is a good model and a good method for, you know, maybe like a low barrier. They don't require too much services. It's a check-in, but that doesn't address like the real issues that they're going through 6 p.m. to 7 a.m., at least from my experience. And so I guess we just would really have to hone in, and maybe that's this meeting or the next meeting, on the population we truly want to serve with this shelter. Because what I look at is the residents that are unhoused on, you know, Fair Oaks, next to JRCC or next to Robinson Park. Would a shelter that you're describing serve that population or the population at Memorial Park?
I don't think that we've gotten that far yet. We haven't.
Okay. I think that's something to think about, right? Is look at all of our hot spots that I think every council member, every district liaison, Port, and I'm sure Jim and Jenny and your team can identify, and know, and the mayor, obviously being citywide elected, understands like where our hot spots are throughout the city and saying like, is this going to serve those hot spots, those neighborhood concerns? So that's what I'd be interested in. And then if services are on site, I think that, you know, transportation to services is a moot point then, because they wouldn't have to drive anywhere or to use transit anywhere, get anywhere if we have full wraparound services at one location.
I think it's it would just depend on, you know, what services were on site. I think even with very robust services on site, there are going to be some services that can't be provided. It's not going to be a hospital, right? It's not going to be an inpatient.
Well, unless you have the shelter at the hospital.
So,
yeah.
and you know, folks on the street have very high physical health needs too. They're often very sick, injured, et cetera. So I think that there will likely be some services that aren't going to be met on site, and
but you're
and
describing
it's those services that potentially would need transportation.
An urgent care or a Huntington Hospital, which wouldn't be our shelter, right? Like that's.
What I'm trying to say is that, you know, the shelter is not going to be able to meet 100% of the needs of the individuals there, and that's okay. I mean, right? The shelter is going to specialize in certain things, not everything. And we have other community resources that, you know, we'd be working to connect folks to, and transportation's an element of that.
Well, Rose Palace might be a ideal location if it's right by the medical corridor from what you described. And then is the goal to make sure that people come in and only stay for, I think you had 90 to 180 days. What would, if they're at capacity, whatever we decide, what do you think would happen after that?
The goal is to move people into permanent housing as quickly as possible. You know, due to the limited availability of permanent housing resources, and that's not just, you know, affordable apartments, that's housing vouchers, that's time-limited subsidies. You know, we find that individuals stay in this type of shelter easily for that 90 to 180 days, sometimes longer. And so, you know, if it does go beyond that, I think it's always on a case-by-case basis. But that is very much impacted by our resources, right, by an outside factor.
So I guess, have we given any thought, like if someone is at the 180 days, like what happens on day 181? Would we, I guess in my opinion, I wouldn't want to kick somebody out, but I also want
absolutely. So, you know, again, we haven't made these exact decisions for
Yeah.
the shelter. The shelters that I've worked in, and I've worked
Yeah.
in shelters, I have operated a shelter. You know, if 180 days is the time frame, when you approach that, there's, you know, a conversation about, is this person, you know, engaged in their housing plan? Are they, you know, and if someone is moving toward permanent housing, like absolutely, everyone's goal is to keep them on that path and to get them into permanent housing and not pull the rug out from under them. So, you know, 90 to 180 days, I think, is really meant as kind of an estimate, a framework.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And then what role will this, I think there's an item on here about this CLC. What role will they play? Because I know Mr. Cole brought up having, you know, community stakeholders, but maybe perhaps that could be because a lot of the service providers serve on the CLC, right?
Well, are members of the CLC.
Are a member, yeah.
But I agree. I think it's a great opportunity for the continuum of care in the city to work together. I mean, ultimately, the continuum of care is a network, not just of service providers, but stakeholders, people from kind of neighboring sectors like healthcare and behavioral healthcare. And so we are well positioned to convene those outside experts to inform the process.
I appreciate that. And then there was a comment about prevention, which I do agree with, right? To stop the bleeding. Like, you don't want to put somebody in the shelter and then they can't go into transitional housing and go into permanent supportive housing and then back up on the street. But also one way to stop the bleeding is to provide like that rental assistance to folks, because oftentimes, you know, someone misses a rent payment, mortgage payment, et cetera. They end up on the street. So I think incorporating that into our thinking as well would help, you know, put a Band-Aid on or stop the bleeding. And then lastly, I do think that we should make sure that there's some attention or focus to survivors of domestic violence, because oftentimes our office hears from those residents often about them being unhoused and there not being any support. And I know that, you know, Jim and Jenny, you're well aware of that and work on those cases. But I do think that, you know, maybe this shelter wouldn't be ideal, but beefing up our motel vouchers or other capacities to make sure that we are supporting and helping our unhoused residents who are survivors of domestic violence. But I'll conclude with, I appreciate all the work that has been done and has been given to this. Thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Jones. And let me just announce that we are going to take up item 1. And are we holding the other two? We can hold the others. And we're going to hold the other 2 items, 3 and 4, given time. In terms of, I just had a couple of comments. You know, whatever it is we do has to include case management and permanent supportive housing type services. Otherwise, it just doesn't work. You know, I tell the story of representing workers at the LA County Housing Authority who would tell me, you know, it's not the units that we need. We have plenty of units. It's permanent supportive housing that we need. And we're talking specifically about veterans, the availability of units for veterans. And they would say to me, you know, without these services, we're just warehousing people, and that just doesn't work. And they go to some of the case managers would go to some of the units and say, you know, we'd find them, we'd place the individuals, but then we'd show up, and a month later, or you know, whenever it was their time to meet, and they were gone because you know they wanted to socialize, they wanted to talk, see their friends, make other friends, and simply placing them in four walls was failing them, the people that the Housing Authority was looking to support. And so whatever we do has to have, in my view, services, appropriate security, and address the issue of those who refuse services. Because, you know, while it is a legal issue, you know, you can't impose services upon someone who, you can't force them. And I think the courts, I'm looking at our city attorney, I think the courts have been very clear about that. But if someone is resisting services or not ready to accept services, then it's not a good idea to mix them with people who are using this as an opportunity to find permanent shelter, permanent housing, I should say. And so, and then it becomes also an issue for the surrounding neighborhoods. I mean, look, all you have to do is walk around City Hall and discover that issue. And it's real. You know, every day that we come here, we see it. Every day that we drive around. And so the separate units or partitions, services, and security should be very, very high on the list of must-haves. And we should work with the county on the service-resistant population. The other thing I'd like to add is, you know, having the services located on site is important because, you know, people who are struggling often have to go to various departments. You know, in LA County, for example, Health Services provides services for people who are, the Department of Health Services, who are struggling with mental health disorder or substance disorder, or both, and are dual diagnosis. That's one department in the county. They have to go to health services for the substance and mental health services for the mental health services. So someone who's dual diagnosis has to go to one clinic on one side of the county and a different mental health clinic for other services at the other end of the county. And that simply doesn't work. That's a dysfunctional system that needs to be corrected. But we should, again, keep that in mind as we plan to assist people. So I do think transportation is important as well. I'll leave it at that.
Mr. Mayor, just one final observation. I think there's a real through line between the comments of all three of us. And one of the most important thing is to overcome this kind of dialogue of the deaf, where one extreme position is the solution to homelessness is housing, right? There's a grain of truth in that, but that is not the solution for every person at every moment. And then there are those who say, oh, we got plenty of housing, we just, you know, these people don't want it because they're all drug addicted or mentally ill. And there's a grain of truth in that, less so, but there still is. There are people out on the street who are mentally ill and who have substance abuse addictions and who at any given moment are not likely to be in a position to accept services. But there's a vast diversity of individuals between those two extremes that we can and should fine-tune our approaches both within any given institution and between different institutions to make this all work. I don't think there's a single answer to homelessness, but there are multiple answers, and we should be pursuing all of them aggressively. But a key element, in my view, which is missing, is a place tonight for someone to sleep, and a place today for someone to get services.
Thank you, Mr. Cole. And let's also keep in mind that we have planned services together with housing at Kaiser. That's our goal, at the Kaiser property, so on North Lake Avenue. One other thing I'd like to add, I've been told by a number of people now that other cities are bringing people who find themselves in their cities to places in Pasadena, such as Robinson Park. Some of the residents, some of the residents and others have asked individuals who are in and around Robinson Park, where do you have family we can contact? And they say, I'm not even from this community. And the follow-up question is, how'd you get here? And they respond, someone just dropped me off. Now, I've heard that from a number of people, and so I would like staff to inquire with some of the folks who need assistance, but I'd like to understand if there are other communities or, anyone who is bringing people here to Pasadena. I think that's an important factoid. So I'll leave that with the staff.
And Mayor, if I may add, I've heard similar comments from residents, especially around Robinson Park and Jackie Robinson Community Center. And I think we did this at MSC. We had, an issue that really impacted folks who used Villa Park or Robinson Park, and we had our MSC meeting at Villa Park. I think it'd be good to have one of these committee meetings, maybe the next one at JRCC.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that'd be good. And maybe we can, I know we're gonna talk about the frequency, maybe we rotate between, JRCC, City Hall, et cetera.
Yeah, no, I agree that we should consider that. Now, the technology, because these meetings have to be televised, but I think Robinson Park has the technology. And so I'm responding to rotating it. We have to be in a place where the technology is there. So let's leave that with staff, and there's, besides a humanitarian issue, if people are being brought here, besides, an equity issue, if cities or communities or organizations are bringing people here. There's also potentially a legal issue, so it's wrong, and we ought to find out if there's any fact to it. Okay.
I don't think we need a motion. I think we were just seeking
direction.
some input and direction.
And as an aside, I make it a point to drive. You're right. As mayor, I have responsibility to the entire city, and so I make it a point to drive different parts of the city every week. And today on the way here, I drove by. Well, I also live in Orange Heights, in close proximity to Robinson, but I made it a point to drive by Robinson, and the people I saw out there, and you and I have been out there together, and we know them. We know who they are that hang out there. Those are not those are not people that I recognize, and and some of the people we went to school with, these were not those people. It's a entirely different group of people.
And I mean, I don't mean to continue to harp on this, but like, you know, there's staff at Robinson Park, at JRCC, and, you know, they've brought up these concerns. The residents have brought up the concerns who use those facilities. And I think that, one, obviously having the satellite, having a location, a committee meeting location there, but maybe even, and this is just would be my opinion, is having like the director of parks or assistant city manager work out of JRCC, you know, once or twice a week, or rotate, just to let the staff know there that, you know, that we're all in this together, and then that, you know, we're down at City Hall, and then they have to go to JRCC and witness whatever they're witnessing, or what they describe to me and others.
Yeah, I know that the city manager's office has heard from a few different council members about looking into this idea of different locations, JRC, Robinson Park. You know, there's some locations that we've kind of heard. Fillmore, there's like some vacant space at Fillmore Station that possibly could be used for a satellite office. The Hill Branch Library, Villa Park. So this is something that we can look into in terms of this kind of model or approach, and we can circle back on that if that's the will of the committee, and we can take that direction if that's what you would like us to do.
I like that idea of, because we hear about wanting satellite locations at some of these hotspots, and I didn't know this, but outside of District 3, it seems like Fillmore and other locations. So I think we definitely should.
Okay, we can work on that, and we'll report back through this committee.
Okay.
Okay, so I think we can move to the point in time count, Jenny? And this is an item that's going to go, it's through this committee, scheduled to go to council, I believe, on the 17th to the full council.
Okay, I'll make it work. Well, good evening, committee members. This evening, it's my pleasure to present to you the results of the 2026 point-in-time homeless count. The data that we will review tonight represents our neighbors, families, and single adults, children, and seniors who are all living through the trauma of homelessness. Behind every figure is a human being striving for stability, dignity, and safety. And it is with that understanding that we present these findings. Oh, thank you. Actually, no. Oh, okay. Somebody did it. Homelessness affects more people over the course of a full year.
I'm sorry, Jenny. We're not here in Holly Street Apartments tonight, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. So we'll have that item for the our next committee meeting. So anyone in the audience, we're not going to hear the item on Holly Street Apartments tonight. Yeah. Sorry about that, Jenny. Thank you.
Maybe we could make sure she has Jim's contact information if, okay.
Okay. I think this will be better. Homelessness affects more people over the course of a full year than on a single night. So we use two complementary tools to inform our understanding of homelessness and our work. The point in time count provides a snapshot of what homelessness looks like on a single night in January. This count is sensitive to short-term shifts and environmental effects, such as the weather. The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development requires continuums of care to conduct a full point-in-time count, meaning both an unsheltered count and a sheltered count, every 2 years, although historically and traditionally Pasadena has conducted a full count annually. The annual count includes everyone who experienced homelessness over the course of a full calendar year, including those who were unhoused just briefly or more than once. The annual count is a more complete picture of homelessness, not subject to night-to-night fluctuations. Our calculation of the calendar year 2025 annual count has been more complex than in previous years due to an influx of people who passed through the homeless services system in the aftermath of the Eaton fire. So we will only be presenting the results of the point-in-time count tonight. There are certain data points such as race, ethnicity, and gender that will be covered in the annual count results, which will be brought to the council in a couple months. They're brought to the committee first, excuse me. Connected to this way. Okay. On the night of the 2026 point-in-time count, 577 people were found to be experiencing homelessness in Pasadena, which is essentially flat compared to the night of the 2025 point-in-time count. However, unsheltered homelessness decreased by 6%, while sheltered homelessness increased by 7%. So while overall numbers stayed stable, people were more likely to be in shelter than in previous years. Here's a look at our point-in-time count results over the past 10 years. We did not conduct a full count in 2021 due to the pandemic. On the night of the count, more than half of people, about 56%, were unsheltered, meaning they were sleeping on streets and sidewalks, in cars and RVs, in parking lots, transit centers, or natural areas. The remaining 44% were in emergency shelters, transitional housing, or staying in motels with vouchers. Per HUD requirements, the point-in-time count does not include people who are doubled up with family or friends, couch surfing, or otherwise considered to be at risk of homelessness. Now we'll take a closer look at Pasadena's unsheltered population. On January 21st and January 22nd, nearly 200 volunteers canvassed the city to count people living without shelter. As they counted, volunteers administered a GIS-administered survey to collect detailed information about people's experiences of homelessness. For the fourth year, Vaccine Strike Teams, a partnership between the Public Health Department and Huntington Hospital, offered field-based vaccinations during the count. For the first time in 5 years, the number of unsheltered residents decreased, dropping from 342 people last year to 322 in 2026. Streets and sidewalks remain the most common sleeping location, although with slightly fewer people than last year. The second most common sleeping location was in cars or RVs, which also saw a slight decrease in the number of people compared to last year. The majority of people experiencing unsheltered homelessness were adults between the ages of 35 and 64. Smaller numbers were young adults age 18 to 24 or older adults age 65 and over. There were no unsheltered minor children counted on the night of this year's point-in-time count. This year, the unsheltered population was entirely made up of single adults and had higher levels of chronic homelessness and other vulnerability indicators than the sheltered population. 65% of unsheltered people were chronically homeless compared to only 35% of the sheltered population. These individuals had experienced at least 12 months of homelessness in the past 3 years and had a disability. 36% of those who were unsheltered on the night of the count had a history of experiencing domestic violence, compared to 25% of our sheltered population. And 12% of the unsheltered population were veterans, compared to only 2% of the sheltered population. In this year's survey, we included several questions related to the impacts of the Eaton fire. 29% of surveyed individuals said they were affected by the fire in some way, and 9% cited the fire as the reason for their housing loss. Among those affected by the fire, 21% reported physical or mental health impacts, 16% had to temporarily evacuate or relocate, 10% were unable to return to their previous housing, and 3% reported losing employment or income as a result of the fire. 76% of people experiencing unsheltered homelessness in Pasadena reported having close ties to the city. 57% were last housed in Pasadena and had lived here for an average of 21 years before losing their housing. 13% had family or friends in Pasadena, and 6% had other connections to Pasadena, such as prior housing or work. Those who did not have ties to Pasadena reported coming to the city for general help or services, to look for housing or work, for safety reasons, or for eat and fire related services. This year, we expanded the survey to include questions about basic needs services. Overall, 74% of unsheltered people had at least one unmet need in the past 30 days. 53% reported being unable to access meals. Another 53% were unable to access showers. 42% did not get the help they needed to obtain documents or benefits. And 39% and 27% reported needing physical or mental health care respectively, but had been unable to access those services. The survey then asked respondents to identify the barriers that prevented them from accessing these needed services. Distance was the top barrier, reported by 26%. The lack of transportation and insufficient information about services were also major obstacles. Others cited safety concerns or reported that they had experienced discrimination, which prevented them from accessing services. And other barriers included the hours of operation at service locations, inability to bring their belongings, pets, or families with them, and language or disability access issues. Now we'll look at the results from the sheltered count. This data is pulled from our HMIS database and is collected by homeless services providers operating interim housing programs. 255 people experiencing homelessness were sheltered on the night of the point in time count, marking a 10-year high in sheltered homelessness. Most sheltered individuals were in year-round shelter programs, including site-based shelters, and year-round motel voucher programs. Notably, motel voucher use has doubled since 2024. Transitional housing and seasonal sheltered programs, including the bad weather shelter, provided additional shelter capacity on the night of the count. Our sheltered population differs significantly from our unsheltered population. Nearly half of the sheltered population was made up of people in families with children, and 23% were children under 18. 29% of our sheltered population had lost their housing in the past year, a significantly higher share than among the unsheltered population. With this data in hand, we now turn to our key takeaways and next steps. So to kind of summarize, on the night of the 2026 point in time count, the overall size of our homeless population was essentially flat. However, we saw a 6% decrease in unsheltered homelessness, a 7% increase in sheltered homelessness. 76% of unsheltered individuals had close ties to Pasadena, and 29% of the unsheltered population had been affected by the Eaton fire. And with 100% of the unsheltered population made up of single adults, the point in time count really underscores the need for year-round shelter resources for individuals. Looking forward, of course, planning for the city's new year-round shelter, which we just discussed. At the same time, the homeless services sector in our region is facing significant challenges. The city anticipates funding cuts at the federal, state, and county levels, as well as reductions in county administered services, which are already impacting our homelessness response system. Shelter and permanent housing resources are becoming scarcer and harder to access. However, there are some promising developments on the horizon. In early 2027, Door of Hope will open the David and Catherine Lee Home, a new transitional housing site, partially funded by the city, which will provide temporary housing for 20 families with children. And the Ramona project across the street, a 100-unit senior affordable housing development with 48 units of permanent supportive housing, is expected to break ground next year. And finally, I want to thank the nearly 200 volunteers who made the 2026 point in time count possible. This is a true community effort. The participation of our community members, professional street outreach workers, faith-based organizations, local nonprofits, several of you guys here seated around the dais, and staff of multiple city departments, including public health, police, fire, and library. They're all essential to the collection of this meaningful data that furthers our understanding of homelessness in Pasadena. And I just want to lift up, Especially want to highlight and thank the Department of Information Technology, which developed our GIS-enabled survey through a months-long collaboration with the Housing Department. So they are behind the scenes, and I think are a little bit of kind of unsung heroes for this effort. And so I just want to highlight their work. To learn more about our point-in-time count and view our detailed data tables, you can visit PasadenaHomelessCount.org. And now I'll open it up to questions.
Thank you. Mr. Cole?
First of all, I think one of the best pieces of news is that there were no minor children out on the street on this particular night, and that we had an uptick in sheltered housing versus unsheltered housing. Could we go back to slide 19? Can you help me understand the difference between a year-round motel voucher and seasonal motel vouchers, which is referenced in the asterisk to seasonal beds?
Sure, we fund several year-round motel voucher programs. So we fund several different agencies that are putting folks in motels regardless of the weather year-round. Some of those stays are short, some of them are longer. We would include the 6 master leased units that Rabbi Joshua referenced as year-round motel vouchers. When we activate the bad weather shelter, our congregate shelter, when it meets those weather criteria, we also activate a much smaller kind of parallel weather activated motel voucher system. And those vouchers are utilized for families, for people who, for a variety of reasons, can't, the congregate shelter is not a good setting for. So sometimes they have health conditions or they're seniors.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what those vouchers refer to.
And if there's any variation between the two, you can clarify that. But what's the parameters for a motel voucher? Is that a day, a week, a month, indeterminate, based upon some identified criteria? What's the nature of a motel voucher when either it's issued by one of the service providers or triggered by the bad weather?
So when the seasonal motel vouchers are activated, they are activated on the same nights as the bad weather shelter. Sometimes they are open, they'll have folks in motels for a day or two longer, and that usually has to do with staff not being available like on the weekend to check people out, et cetera. So it doesn't exactly align, but it's meant for short stays during inclement weather. And as far as year-round motel vouchers go, there's no specific duration. There are, as I mentioned, they're basically just different models, and some programs may utilize the voucher for very short amounts of times. Perhaps they found somebody a bed in a substance use treatment center that's available next week, and we want to, keep them in one place until we can get them there. That would be kind of a shorter stay. But we also have programs that utilize motel vouchers really as bridge housing for those longer stays, bridging people all the way up until they get into permanent housing. So there's a range.
And we're now in a new fiscal year. The council members were concerned that there had been a standing policy that when we run out of motel vouchers, when the service providers run out of motel voucher, that would come back to the council for potential solutions to that. This last year we ran out, and it did not come back to the council. What's staff's understanding of how we keep the council in the loop on this?
I think that especially with this new committee, we have a venue for those more regular updates. We will, the only way we would not run out of motel vouchers is if everybody is inside every night. And that, would cost more than $10 million a year. I think I did the math once, and it's not something that's in our budget. And it still means that people are homeless. And so we really need to develop a system that has throughput we need to bring people inside for their safety and well-being, but we also need to make sure that they have, that there are resources on the other side so that they can exit motel vouchers or year-round shelter, whatever the interim housing, wherever that bed is. Not only so that they can get into permanent housing, but so that that bed can then become available for someone else. So there's really a balance there that we have to achieve. I think, any night where we have 300 people out on the street, is the night we could use more motel vouchers. But I think that it's really just like one piece of the puzzle, and we really need to consider the full continuum of services that are available so that we have a system that has throughput and is efficient.
I appreciate the nuance of that response. I think that begs the question of whether our longstanding policy makes sense.
Right, and I wanted to add that this topic of the motel vouchers and when we run out of money and what our policy is actually one of the work program items for this committee. We have that noted. We have the master lease and the vouchers and what that policy is. So that's something that we can agendize and have a very, specific conversation about, what the council wants to do, what they want expectations are. It's not clear now. So I think we need to have that conversation here.
Part of the vocabulary pro and con in these discussions is about Band-Aids. This is a clear case where we don't even have enough Band-Aids. And that's a serious set of challenges. In the 5-year strategic plan for homelessness, there are some metrics. Are we as a committee going to see a regular update on those metrics so that, because this is one, again, snapshot, but it doesn't give us the kind of ongoing ability for us to see, this is 8 months out of date, for example, 7 months out of date. And so can we get, say, quarterly updates on the metrics that are quarterly in the 5-year plan?
I think that's something we can certainly look at. Some of those metrics are very labor intensive to pull. So quarterly may not be practical, but I think we can definitely look at what is more readily available and provide more regular updates. We will be bringing the 3rd annual progress report for that homelessness plan in the next few months, perhaps alongside the annual count. But I think we can certainly look into more regular updates. And then I'll also just add that, we are a few years into the plan. In some metrics, we have exceeded our goals, but for instance, in housing people, but it hasn't resulted in the reductions that we anticipated. And so we know there's a need to adjust some of those goals that we stated in order to get to the reductions in homelessness that we're looking for.
In the same spirit, the plan calls for quarterly interdepartmental meetings of staff. And it's my understanding from our last discussion on this that those have not taken place since COVID. We've assembled a team now to work on this council goal, but I'll be very direct. I know how limited your staff is, Mr. Wong, and I know how hard they work and how conscientious they are. But we're operating in the dark, right? We don't have real-time data. And as you've just mentioned, sometimes getting that data is labor intensive. There are ways to fix that, right? You credited our information technology department with helping you modernize the technology that's used in the point-in-time count. We literally get, the city, the county, get terabytes of data on homelessness, right? We encounter homeless people in our libraries. We get city service responses. We get 911 calls. We have case management by all of our service providers who are supposed to keep an HMIS record of all of those interactions with their clients. Our port team and our help team are responding to people on a daily basis. So we know a lot, and we have observations from council members, right? And city staff at our recreation centers. We have lots of data. And so it is not an insoluble problem in 2026 to develop the technology to be able to track that data and utilize that data. And so I think that's an important interdepartmental challenge is, and we, by the way, are not the first, right? The national standard around functional zero is by name counts. And so other cities have developed real-time data where they know literally every homeless person currently that's had any contact with their bus drivers, with their library workers, with their recreation workers, with their police officers, with their firefighters, with their service providers. We lack that, and the result is we're looking at one-time snapshot data 8 months after it was collected. That is operating in the dark, and getting the right help to the right people at the right time is completely based upon our ability to have that data so we can match the right people with the right help at the right time. And again, I don't expect your very small staff to operate in the current environment, because you're right, there's too much work to do it well. But we should fix that, and you should have real-time data, and that real-time data should be shared widely among all the service providers and the city council.
Thank you, Mr. Cole. Mr. Jones?
Thanks, Mayor. And
How much time will you need?
How much time? Half of what he had.
Forgot to ask that question.
You threw me off. All right, let me find my notes. Okay. Yeah, it was intentional. Well, first, I appreciate Jenny and all her efforts that she's done, because she's organized this massive effort. I was out there on the day of the count, and so I really appreciate your service to our city. The feedback that I received from the residents that we did the count on was that the survey was a little invasive. I can't remember the exact question, but I think either I called you at this point. Yeah, I mean, it was a while back though, yeah. But I just remember there being some questions. It may have been with HIV perhaps or something, but I know that they said, well, it's a little invasive. I don't want to answer any more questions. And so I think that's just, an observation that I had, or that they had and gave back to me. I don't know if you wanted to respond, or I can.
Just that some of the questions were required to ask by HUD. The survey is voluntary. People can drop out at any point in the survey, and they do.
Yeah.
It's part of why it's so difficult for us to analyze all these numbers, is because, the responses we get, people are basically answering a different survey, everyone's. That being said, I do think that we are due to kind of overhaul our survey. There are questions that we have just gotten used to asking that, that don't really, the data we get doesn't really change much year to year. We're not really using it for much. So the next time that we do an unsheltered count, I do intend to start from scratch.
Yeah.
Start from what is just, start from what's required and then build on top of that. I think we're due for a bit of an overhaul or a refresh. It's also just too long, right? That's
that
another.
Too. Yeah. I appreciate hearing that. The transportation piece, I know at the time we did the count, and you mentioned it here, the shelter, the bad weather shelter was open. And one of the questions was, are you interested, and this ties to my next question, I guess, about services, but it was, are you interested in going to the bad weather shelter? Are you interested in services? but we didn't have like any lined up transportation to the bad weather shelter. I believe we just gave them a handout that said, okay, the bad weather shelter is at Trinity Lutheran Church, and here's how you can get to it. But other than that, and the guy, the gentleman who was unhoused that we did the count on, he said, well, how am I think it was right down the street. And he's like, you expect me to walk there, or how am I supposed to get there? And I think that it raised a good question that maybe we could provide. I don't know what the resources would take, the level of effort, but providing resources such as transportation if the shelter's open at night, or if we open a shelter during the count. And same thing with services, is being able to, and I think we talked about this, is that there was a resident, we asked, would you be interested in services? Would you be interested in like motel vouchers? And he said yes, but we had nothing to offer that person. And so I felt like that was a missed opportunity for, someone we talked about a service resistant population, but this was somebody that was willing to accept services, and there was nothing to offer to them at the time.
One of the, well, first of all, I just want to thank you for that feedback now, and I know back in January and February we spoke about it a few times, and I fully agree. It's feedback we've gotten from other volunteers over the years. The only service we actually really offer is the vaccines. We do give them that handout, the cold weather kits. But there are occasions when somebody either is asking for more, or they're just clearly in need of more. We've gotten calls from volunteers who don't know, like, is this a 911 call, or is this person okay? And over the years, we have utilized our professional outreach teams in different ways. Some years we have sent them to the parks. Some years we tried to embed them in every volunteer team. We used to have them on the outskirts of the city, then we brought them to the middle. And, throughout all of this, I think that they want to participate, they have invaluable skills, and I think that there's a real opportunity to potentially have, one or two outreach teams essentially on call during the count, the unsheltered count, because they're the ones, of course, who have the training and skills and resources to answer those questions, make those connections. Not our volunteers who are trained to administer a survey. And so that is something that we've noted for next year that I'm hoping we can put into place. A team that's, not the vaccine strike team, not our volunteers, but a team that can, hear from volunteers and go to that location to do those things, assess the situation, make that connection for, future case management, et cetera, potentially transportation to a shelter, So it's a great suggestion, and, we're certainly going to try to put something like that in place for the next one.
Thank you. I appreciate you being open to the suggestion and taking action. And then lastly is the training piece. At least when I was out there, it just seemed like there was some folks that were, at least on the team I was on, they would identify people that to me is like, those aren't unhoused residents. It's somebody who looks to be on their lunch break in an alley in old Pasadena or something. And so maybe some, this goes back to like implicit bias, but maybe some stronger training of how do you identify someone? Because to me, the folks that I saw that they said were unhoused, and they actually went up to them and started to try to administer the survey, it was very clear that these weren't unhoused residents. But then that goes back to, well, what does an unhoused resident look like?
Right.
And so that's to me it was and there were some people that we'd go, approach them, can we administer the survey? And he's like, why? You think I'm unhoused? And so I think, and I don't know if they were unhoused or not. They declined the survey, and they declined any type of.
Right, you make a great point, right? What does an unhoused person look like?
Yeah.
Some of them are more obvious than others. Some of them really don't know and are hard for us to identify, even hard for our seasoned professional outreach workers to identify. Certainly I think we can look into providing more training. However, it's never going to be perfect. It's an imperfect process. It is consistently imperfect, I will say. This is an estimate. It's meant to be a snapshot. Every year we rely on community volunteers. We train them all the same. And so even though we know, it's not exact, I think, it's still a useful tool for looking at year-to-year trends. And it's also why we have now developed the annual count as this supplementary data source to have a clearer look at homelessness.
I appreciate that. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. All very good questions and good feedback. And the date of the homeless count next year what's the?
So it's required by HUD to take place during the last 10 days in January.
Okay.
We typically work to align with the county so that our count is at the same night as San Gabriel Valley. So it hasn't been established yet.
Okay, that's what I'm thinking. I thought it was mandated to be on a certain date, but it's coordination with the county. Okay.
It's both. Both? Yeah. The last 10 days in January
the window.
and the coordination.
Got it. Yeah, okay. Okay, public comment?
Yes, we have Sonia Burnt, followed by Melissa Eves.
Ms. Byrne, welcome. Welcome back.
Yeah, I submitted a letter with my concerns about the 2026 point in time count. There continues to be confusion about the availability of motel vouchers, and it's pointed out by Councilmember Cole on the PowerPoint presentation at slide 19 with references to seasonal motel vouchers and year-round motel vouchers. For example, it says motel vouchers have doubled since 2024. Well, that was just on that one night, compared on that one night. So when you say you have 75 year-round motel vouchers, that's not 75 motel vouchers every single night for the year. I mean, it could have been 20 the next week. So we have to clarify that. And that's important because of what Councilmember Cole was talking about. I guess it was a fiction that the housing staff would come to the city council to ask for more vouchers because that's what they were supposed to do. But they're not doing that, and you're rethinking that. We need a dashboard updated at least monthly with the number of persons sheltered with motel vouchers, how many nights per person, how much money is left for motel charges and services, and how much is needed. And then staff can come for the ask, or we can establish this is the level of unmet needs we have in our city. You have the power, as Rabbi Joshua Grader was saying, he's got the motel rooms. You have the power, council does, to make that unsheltered count go down quickly. We have the motel rooms. We have the people. They're all different levels. And I refer you to the minutes of the December 1st workshop 2025. Quote, the city council identified the following as top budget priorities. On the second one, it said, theme, invest in housing people homelessness prevention. Bullet point 1, year-round homelessness shelter. Bullet point 2, homeless transitional / temporary housing. And if you go through that, Mayor, if you go through that and listen to it, it was very clear that transitional housing was included in the priorities. And this idea that I'm still confused about the year-round shelter. I mean, are we going to be open every day? Or is the mayor saying something different? We're only going to be open if it's certain weather for certain days, because that makes no sense. Because, and staff clearly thought it meant, with services, clearly thought it meant that it would be open every day. That's what year-round means. And I'm very glad to hear that we're going to have another point in time count next year, because I hope that the idea of doing it every 2 years has been permanently discarded, since we've fallen way behind in our 5-year goals. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Was that it? Oh, well, there's one more card.
There was Melissa Eves.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, yeah. Okay, that completes the agenda, and I did. Oh.
Sorry, Mayor.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Yeah,
there was
that's
one
okay.
more.
It completes this item, but we just wanted to have a quick discussion about the frequency of the meetings with the committee. There was a suggestion that maybe we move to twice monthly instead of once monthly, so we just wanted to get the feedback from the committee on that.
We should probably make that decision when Mr. Lyon is here.
Oh, yeah, that's
When we
true.
have a full committee.
Yeah.
But
I'd be open to just finding the right date.
So we'll bring it back at the next meeting, but it seems like, at least for the three that are here, they would be supportive of that. We can look at the twice a month and then possibly rotating locations and the logistics of that. And we can bring that when we come back to our next meeting.
Yeah, but I think we should be unanimous on that decision, because if Councilmember Lyon can't make it work, then I wouldn't want to leave him behind.
Maybe he'll abstain.
It's good, Mr. Cole. Oh,
It's fine, it's on the agenda. so you
yeah,
can
it's on the
comment.
agenda, so you're entitled to make a comment 2 minutes, but we're not hearing the matter, and so when it does come before us.
What?
wait,
Oh,
it's-
I can give my comment now. I'm
Okay.
just thrilled.
That's fine.
I'm thrilled. I thought you were going to say you were going to meet less than once a month. This is fantastic. I'm not prepared to be so excited about that.
We accept spontaneity.
And I just want to say that, we have Sean Morrissey here from Union Station, and I know Rabbi Grader. In terms of this continuum of care, I'm really excited that they would be all involved. They're the ones who really know this stuff. They know the people. They know what works. And to involve them in as we're going forward, that would be great. And I do, since I have a tiny bit of time, I just want to say I've been advocating for the homeless for over 6 years now in retirement. I am grateful for the state legislation that has made it possible for the critical affordable housing we need. Cities failed to do it, including Pasadena. So thankfully, the state stepped in. And I believe we need to have thoughtful, balanced discussion and not one person's view when they're stating it to the community, because you represent me too, and I'm very supportive of the state legislation. Thank you.
Thank you. The only thing I would respond to that is it's the cookie cutter approach. Actually, Pasadena has done far better than any surrounding community and far more. And I think the evidence is there of that, particularly on a per capita basis. And has done so for a long time when it comes to affordable housing. We are I've hosted and toured a number of cities throughout LA County. And we went to the different sites, and they were looking to our housing department, and our housing department was present as well, what we were doing that they could do. And so I'm very proud of our record. But when legislation is applied cookie cutter, as though every community is the same, particularly built out communities, it just doesn't work. And I thought that the state could have been and should have been much more surgical and thoughtful, instead of just throwing up on the wall and saying, make it work. That's the distinction that I draw. And they didn't do that. It was not thoughtfully. And so we should talk and meet about that. The city attorney reminds me we should agendize it and have a discussion about that. You're correct. Thank you, Mr. City Attorney.
I'll renew my motion to adjourn.
Yeah.
Well, Mayor, just to quickly, maybe we can get an update on the affordable housing map that we had shown. I think the last one that you sent, Jim, and we brought it up in this committee, was 2024, and that had like 5,100
Yes,
housing units. Yeah.
that map is still being updated. We have
Okay.
a couple more projects that we want to include in it, but we are working with DoIT to update that map, and we'll
Okay.
get that in short order.
Okay, yeah, because I remember that map showed that District 3 had about 2,100 units of the 5,100 units in Pasadena. And there was, we've heard this from public commenters about District 4, District 7, and other districts as well, not having, the opportunity to host more affordable housing units, so.
Yep, okay. All right. I think that, is there a second to adjourn? Mr. City Attorney, would you like to second that motion? Anyone on staff? Okay, it's unanimous among all of us in the room. We are adjourned.
Good report, thank you. Jason, how are you?